You have fed this tomato plant all season. Fertilizer, spikes, Epsom salt, maybe a second round when it started looking rough again. And it still gives you the same thing, yellow leaves working their way up from the bottom, flowers dropping before they set, fruit that cracks or stays small. And sometimes, just when you think the plant is turning around, those black, sunken bottoms show up too. The plant is not dying, it is just never quite right. What makes this frustrating is that it is not a beginner mistake. Experienced gardeners hit this same wall every summer. They do everything the label says. They stay consistent, and the results still disappoint. So they reach for another product. That is exactly where the problem begins. Here is what the modern routine looks like. The plant looks pale, you add liquid fertilizer, the leaves green up in a few days. You feel good about it. Then 2 weeks later, the same yellowing is back, or something else shows up. So you try a tomato spike, then Epsom salt, because someone said that fixes it. Then a different brand of plant food. The plant responds a little each time, but you are always back at the same shelf, reading the same labels, buying the next thing. This is the rescue habit. Something looks wrong. You add something, it improves briefly, and then you are back at the start. The problem is not that those products do not work at all. Some of them do provide nutrients, but they are built for quick results, fast-acting salts that push leaf growth in the short term, and they are solving the surface problem, not the soil problem underneath. The mistake is putting fertilizer on top of a tired root zone and expecting lasting results. Here is what is actually happening under the soil. A tomato plant does not just absorb bottled nutrients directly. It depends on a living system underground, billions of tiny organisms that process organic material and pass nutrients back to the roots in a form the plant can actually use. When that system is active and healthy, the plant feeds steadily. It does not need rescuing because the soil is doing the work on its own. But when that underground system is depleted, when the soil has been worked hard season after season without being fed itself, the plant is left depending entirely on whatever you pour on from above. And the moment you stop, the hunger returns. Fast fertilizer feeds the leaf. It does not rebuild that living layer underneath. The tomato is not asking for more blue water. It is asking for better soil. Feeding the leaf is not the same as feeding the soil. And the soil is where the root actually lives. There is a Japanese-style approach to this that most American gardeners have never tried. It does not come in a bottle. It does not sit on a shelf at the garden center. And it does not start in the garden at all. It starts in the kitchen. The method is called Bokashi. It is a Japanese-style fermentation practice, and the core idea is simple. Instead of throwing kitchen scraps away, you ferment them in a sealed bucket using a special bran. Once the scraps have gone through that fermentation, you bury the result into your garden bed. The soil finishes the job underground, and the tomato roots benefit from what comes next. That is the whole picture. Now, the important distinction, because this is where most people get confused. Bokashi is not composting. It is not rotting scraps in an open pile. There is no rotten pile smell, no turning, no waiting for scraps to break down in the open air. The bucket stays sealed. The scraps are preserved, not decomposed. They change on the inside without falling apart on the outside. In the bucket, the scraps are preserved. In the soil, they become food. That quiet bucket sitting in a corner can do something another expensive product usually cannot. It feeds the soil before the tomato has to beg. Here is why this matters. Most people think rot and fermentation are the same thing. They are not. Rot is uncontrolled breakdown. It is messy, unpredictable, and often produces compounds the soil has to fight through before it can use anything useful. Bokashi is controlled souring. The scraps are not decomposing. They are being preserved in an acidic environment, almost like pickling. The structure stays intact. And that matters, because when you bury that soured material into the soil, the organisms already living underground can get to work on it immediately. It is closer to a prepared meal than a pile of raw scraps, but the soil still needs time to finish it. That is why Bokashi-fed soil tends to become darker and more active over time. The organisms are well-fed. A well-fed soil feeds the root. The root feeds the plant. There is one thing to understand about timing, and this matters practically. The freshly fermented material is still quite sour when it comes out of the bucket. That is fine for the soil, but it is too strong for young tomato roots to sit directly against. The soil needs a little time to mellow it out first. Rot and fermentation look the same from the outside. But the soil treats them completely differently, and so does the root. That is the shift. Not more fertilizer, better soil. Not rescue from above, but preparation from below. Here is how to do this at home. It is simpler than it sounds. Step 1. Collect and chop your kitchen scraps. Fruit and vegetable scraps work well for beginners. peels, cores, leftover produce, coffee grounds, eggshells. Chop them into smaller pieces when you can. Smaller pieces ferment more evenly. Skip anything that is already badly moldy and drain off extra liquid before it goes in. Step 2. Layer the scraps with Bokashi bran. Bokashi bran is a grain material inoculated with the organisms that drive fermentation. You can find it at garden centers or order it online. Sprinkle a layer of bran between each layer of scraps as you add them. The bran is the starter without it. You just have a bucket of scraps slowly going bad. Step 3. Press everything down and seal the lid. After each layer, press the scraps down firmly. Less air in the bucket means cleaner fermentation. A good Bokashi bucket has a tight lid. Keep it closed between additions. Step 4. Let it sit once full. Once the bucket is full, seal it and set it aside. It needs a few weeks to complete the fermentation process. You will know it is ready when it smells pleasantly sour, almost like vinegar or pickles rather than rotten. Step 5. Bury it into the tomato bed. When you are ready to use it, dig it into the soil and mix it in well. Cover it completely. Do not leave fermented scraps exposed on the surface. Animals will find them. This step works best before you plant, or in a section of the bed you are preparing for the next cycle. Step 6. Wait before planting directly over it. Give the soil a couple of weeks to absorb and mellow the sour material before young tomato roots move in. If you rush this step, the fresh fermented mix can stress new roots rather than feed them. Step 7. Start a second bucket. This is the part that makes the system actually work long term. While the first bucket is fermenting or being used, start filling a second one. One bucket filling, one bucket working. That steady rotation is what turns this from a one-time experiment into a real soil-feeding cycle. 2 buckets. One filling, one working. That is the whole system. Here is where people tend to ruin it, and it is almost always by rushing. The most common mistake is burying fresh bokashi too close to young tomato roots. The sour material is still active when it first comes out of the bucket. It needs time in the soil to mellow before roots move through it. If you bury it right against the stem or root ball of a plant that is already in the ground, you can stress the root instead of feeding it. Keep it away from existing roots and let the soil do its work. The second mistake is leaving it exposed. Once you open that bucket and bring the fermented material out, cover it quickly. Left uncovered on the soil surface, it will attract animals overnight. One more honest note. If you have seen blossom end rot on your tomatoes, Bokashi may help support better overall soil conditions over time, but it is not a cure on its own. Consistent watering and good calcium movement in the soil still matter for that. If your plants are showing blossom end rot right now, do not expect one bucket to solve it immediately. And if your tomato plants are already struggling this season, do not try to fix them by burying fresh Bokashi near the roots right now. It is too late in the cycle for that. Use this season to start your bucket and prepare a nearby bed section for next time. For the plants you have in the ground today, steady watering, a layer of mulch, and light compost on the surface will do more than another round of liquid fertilizer. The mistake is not the method. The mistake is rushing the method. Now let's look at what this actually costs and what it replaces. Every bottle on the garden shelf is a rescue product. It is designed for the moment something goes wrong. You reach for it when the plant looks pale, when the leaves start to yellow, when the fruit does not set, and it gives you just enough improvement to keep you buying the next one. Bokashi is something different. It is a prevention product. It does its work before the plant has to beg. The kitchen scraps that were going in the trash, the vegetable peels, the fruit cores, the coffee grounds, those become the material that feeds your tomato bed next season. Not bought, not bottled. Already in your kitchen, waiting. Modern feeding waits until the plant looks sick. This method feeds the ground before the plant begs. That is the Japanese style lesson here, and it is not complicated or mysterious. It is just a different order of thinking. You do not wait for weakness and then rescue. You build the conditions for strength, quietly, before the season starts. A plant that grows from healthier soil usually needs less rescuing. When watering, sunlight, and spacing are also steady, the flowers tend to hold better, the fruit tends to develop more evenly, and the whole plant has a better chance of carrying the season well. That is not a guarantee. Gardening never comes with guarantees, but it is what steady soil can support over time. The quiet bucket in the corner may do more than another expensive garden product. That is the whole idea, not magic, just a smarter order of doing things: soil first, rescue last.